Hello there, my name's Scott. Today I'm going to be doing a review on the Smok telescope mod, which I received from www.e-cigwizard.com. Before I start though, I must point out I did receive it free of charge for the purpose of conducting a review, but my opinion of the product remained true, honest and accurate as always. Okay, let's go straight ahead then and show you what's in the box. Okay, so the Smok telescope mod comes in a little presentation box, and when you lift up the lid, inside you're going to find a fully assembled telescope mod. Now you won't get anything else in the box. There's no batteries, instructions, chargers, etc, etc. You are getting just the device on its own. Okay, so the telescope mod is basically made up of 3 parts. This particular one that they sent out to me is the black chrome version, and I believe it is made out of brass, which has then been plated over the top of it. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the 3 parts. Okay, so the first part of the telescope mod is the switch assembly, and it uses a bottom button, so every time you want to have a vape, just going to press that in and it will fire up whatever atomizer or cartomizer you're using. It does also have a locking feature, so if you don't want it to activate, you just got to spin that down and that's it. It will no longer allow you to push it in. There's a very thick and sturdy looking brass sort of spring there. I'm not too sure if it's what's known as a hot spring, but it does sort of look like one, but like I said, I'm not too certain on that though. What it does have though is ventilation holes. Now I believe this is the newer version of the Smok telescope, because the original one didn't have any sort of ventilation on it, which did quite rightly cause a little bit of concern for people. Whereas this one does have ventilation here on the switch, and it also has several ventilation holes on the main body, which I'll show you in a sec. Okay, so the next section of the telescope mod is nothing too exciting to look at. It's basically just a tube with some threading on the inside, nice big chunky threads though, and this just allows you to adjust the overall length of the telescope mod. So you can use batteries like the small ones such as the 18350 all the way up to the larger 18650. And then finally you just have the top section. As you can see, it has another big vent hole there. And on the top it has a 510 connection, so you can use with any sort of 510 ATI or cartomizer. But it also has this very sort of deep well, so if you're using one of these sort of ego skirted atomizers, then you can just screw those straight onto it, no problem. Okay, so to assemble the telescope mod, all you've got to do is screw the switch assembly into the base of the tube. And then you're going to put whatever battery you want to use in there, then put the top on and just screw it down into place. So I'll start off then using the largest battery it can take, which is the 18650, and then I'll show you it with the smallest battery, which is the 18350. Now you may be able to see my battery has a little bit of a line going around it there, and this is because of the inside of that vent hole. It just feels a little bit rough to the touch. And so it's just putting a little bit of a line into my battery. So what I need to do is just take some emery cloth or a bit of sandpaper and just get that a very light sort of rub on the inside there, and that should be fine. So just be mindful of that if you do happen to get one. So I'm going to insert the negative end of the battery in towards the switch. So it goes in there. You just put the top on. And you just got to start screwing it down until you can feel a little bit of resistance. And then as soon as you feel the resistance, you know that the connection's been made. That's about there. So that's it. That is the 18650 mode. So let's just say then I want to use, I want to make the telescope mod into a really nice little small compact size. I'm just going to take a small 18350 battery, again insert the negative end towards the switch, take the top, and then just start screwing it down. Now because it is a pretty small battery in there, it does involve a lot of screwing. So bear with me. Going as fast as I can, and that's it. It's all the way down to the bottom there, and it's made a nice connection. And then all you got to do is take an atomizer or cartomizer, stick it in the top there, and you can start vaping. Now, as you can probably see, the black chrome is a bit of a fingerprint magnet, but with a quick wipe over with a cloth, as you can see, the finish does come up looking very nice and shiny. Okay, so that is the Smok telescope mod. let's go ahead and see what it vapes like. Okay, so that is the Smok telescope mod, and what I'll do now is go ahead and show you in action. Now I'm using it with the smallest battery it can take, which is the 18350, so that is the telescope mod in its sort of smallest, most compact size. Got a Vision Ego tank atomizer on there, which has been filled up with some 18mg strength tobacco flavoured e-liquid, which is just a PG based e-liquid. And the head that I've got in there is a 1.8 ohm. Okay, so this is the telescope mod. As you can see, like vaporizer, produces plenty of vapour. What you have to bear in mind though is that the amount of vapour you're going to get is going to be very dependent on your own personal setup. The mod doesn't come with atomizers or cartomizers, so whatever you stick on the end of it is going to determine how much vapour you're going to get. But nevertheless, so with the Vision Ego, I'm still getting plenty of vapour. And the same thing applies to the throw hit as well. You know, it's going to be very dependent on your own sort of personal setup. And I also find that the strength of the e-liquid also plays quite a big part in the throw hit. In other words, the higher the nicotine content, the stronger or the harsher the throw hit. And I'm using 18mg strength here, which isn't particularly high or particularly low, right there in the middle. I'm still getting a really nice strong thump in the back of my throat. And when it comes to battery life, once again, it is going to be very dependent on your own sort of personal setup with regards to what battery you're using. Now, for example, if I'm using the 18350 battery, which is a 700 mAh, I think this one is, now I'm going to be going through probably 1.5 of those batteries a day of a, you know, sort of not a heavy vaping, but, you know, definitely sort of moderate vaping. Now, when I class myself as a moderate vapor, I call myself moderate because I'm not a chain vapor. You know, so there are people who use, basically, you know, wake up in the morning, put their e-cig in their mouth and they're sort of vaping all day long until they go to sleep at night. Whereas I can go sort of 20 minutes, 30 minutes without having a vape if necessary. So that's why I class myself as a moderate vapor rather than like a chain vapor. So if I'm using the 18350, you know, bearing in mind how much I sort of vape, I'm going to be going through about 1.5 batteries a day. But if I'm using the larger 18650 battery, and I've got one which is about 2,400 mAh, I'm going to be getting a full day's worth of vaping easily, plus another sort of half day out of it the next day as well. You know, so battery life is really good depending on what sort of battery you actually want to use. For the switch, it's actually quite a nice switch, and I seem quite surprised by that because I was quite surprised. Because when I looked at it, like the pictures, all I could think about was how much it actually stuck out, and I was thinking it's going to be quite horrible to sort of, you know, use and activate, you know, to get the atomizer to fire up. But it's actually got a really nice action to it. It's got just the right amount of tension on there. Plus, you've also got the locking feature, so once it's out, you know, you can't activate it. So handy if you're going to be sort of carrying it around in your pocket. Now, obviously, when the telescope mod first came out, it did quite rightly get a lot of bad press because they didn't include any sort of ventilation holes. Now, I don't want to sort of start scaring people, but there is that very, very, very slight chance you might end up one day sort of putting a dodgy battery in there. And if the battery is sort of venting gases, if you haven't got any sort of vent holes, those gases are just going to build up, and it's obviously going to cause you problems. Now, where this does have the vent holes, it's got one in the switch and one in the body, and they are both quite large vent holes. You know, lots of air is passing through there. So, you know, if you do happen to get one of those dodgy batteries, at least that way now the dodgy gases have got somewhere to vent out of. You know, so that is a big plus over the original telescope mod. Not a great deal else I can really sort of tell you about it. I'll get onto the scores. For the looks, it's actually a lot nicer when it's in your hand than what the images show on like the various websites. And the black chrome is a really, really nice finish, but it is a bit of a fingerprint magnet. Now, in those close-up shots, when I looked back, I was quite surprised at just how bad it looked with regards to my fingerprints. That's why I added on that little bit at the end there, just to show you what it looks like when it's been rubbed over with a cloth quickly. Now, I do want to sort of point out, though, that before I start shooting close-up shots, I always moisturise my hands. And so a lot of those fingerprints are actually a lot worse than what they would be out of sort of normal, regular use. But for the looks, so I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think it looks quite nice. The only thing that's slightly off-putting is that the switch does tend to sort of stick out quite a bit. But apart from that, it looks all right, really. For the vapor production and the throw hit, I'm going to give both of those my average scores of 8 out of 10 each. Of course, it will be very dependent on your own sort of personal setup. Now, with regards to the battery life, again, that is very much down to sort of your personal setup. But you know, based on the biggest battery you can take, which is the 18650, you know, based on my own sort of personal vaping, you know, if I can make a battery last me a full day, that's great. If I can make a battery last me over a full day, that's excellent. So I'm going to give the battery life a 10 out of 10. And for the switch, I'm only going to knock off 1 point, and that is because the actual switch does tend to stick out quite a bit and looks a little bit unsightly. But apart from that, you know, it operates every single time, never had any sort of misfires. It's a really nice action to it. It's probably one of the nicest bottom button switches I've actually used. And it's also got the locking feature on there as well, you know, so the only point it's going to lose is because it sticks out a little bit too much, but nevertheless a 9 out of 10. If you do fancy trying one of these out for yourself, go along to www.e-cigwizard.com, type in this code at checkout, and they'll give you a 12.5% discount every time you purchase from them. Thank you very much for watching, and also come along and visit my website at www.e-cig-reviews.com. That's e-cig-reviews.com. Cheers guys, happy vaping, see you later.